Hello and welcome to this first ever episode of the Happy Families podcast. My name's Dr. Justin Coulson, and this is the podcast that's dedicated to making your family happier. Because this is all brand new, I'm just going to take a quick minute and introduce myself and tell you a bit about who I am, and then we're going to dive into this week's topic, which is called 7 Ways that we can proactively set our family up to be happy. As I said, my name is Dr. Justin Coulson, and the first thing that you should know about me is that I'm a dad. My wife Kylie and I have got 6 children, 6 daughters, and I've got to admit, even though I know a whole bunch about parenting, I find it incredibly challenging. And that's kind of how I got here. So let me tell you my story in just a couple of brief minutes, and then I'll tell you more about this podcast. So I left high school, did a couple of years of volunteer work for my church, and then got into the radio business. I was a radio announcer for the best part of a decade and climbed all the way to the top of the radio tree, got to one of the biggest radio stations in Australia, and loved what I did. But the further up I got, the less I enjoyed it, until I got to the very top, and I thought, you know what, this view isn't everything that I'd hoped that it would be. At the same time, my wife and I, Kylie and I, had just had our second daughter, and I was really failing as a father. I was this mid-20s guy, radio jock, had no idea how to be a dad because, let's face it, we just have children. Nobody tells us how to be parents. We just become parents. And I was doing I think, a terrible job, quite honestly. And there was one particular incident that I remember when my eldest daughter, as a little 2 or 3 year old toddler, she was not playing the game that I wanted her to play. She wouldn't do as she was told. Kylie had left me for the afternoon. It was a Saturday arvo, and I was exhausted from work and just not in the mindset for looking after my toddler. And I did not deal well with her oppositional behaviour. She was defiant. I got angry. I yelled at her. I threatened her. Eventually, I smacked her and threw her into her room onto her bed. I did it in a way that I knew that I wasn't going to hurt her, but I was so angry. Seriously, who throws their daughter, right? But that was the level that I was at as a parent. I had no idea how to do parenting, and I was failing terribly. I shouted at her. I smacked her. I left her in her bedroom, slammed the door, and I went outside to calm down. As I stepped out onto the back porch, I overheard across the back fence and down the street adjacent to ours, somewhere in the neighbourhood, a father going through exactly what I'd just gone through. He was screaming at his toddler. The toddler was wailing at the top of his or her lungs, and I just knew that he was hitting her or him and hurting this baby. And it was like what I'd just done was reflected right back to me, and it felt sickening. And I just thought to myself, I've got to do better at this. So I started trying to learn all I could about parenting. Eventually, I actually said to my wife, I want to learn more about this parenting stuff, and I think I want to leave my radio career and learn how to do parenting better. I think I want to do a degree. And amazingly, she said okay. So here we are with 2 kids. I'd been almost a high school dropout, so I had to go and do an advanced diploma at TAFE just so that I could actually get into university. And then I did a 4-year undergraduate degree in psychological science. I graduated with first-class honours, which amazed me because I always thought I was kind of unintelligent. I still think I'm not the most intelligent guy on the block, but I worked really hard and somehow got the first-class honours and was offered a range of PhD scholarships around the country from a handful of universities, and also got into a highly competitive master's program to become a psychologist. I ended up choosing the PhD at the University of Wollongong that I was offered, and 3.5 years after that, I finally graduated, having earned a first-class honours in psych science and a PhD in psychology. In addition, along the way, during the degrees, Kylie and I had our 3rd and 4th and 5th daughters, and at the time of recording this, we're recording this late July, early August 2014, we've just had our 6th daughter, and we absolutely adore our kids, and parenting has changed enormously over the years as I've gone through those studies, worked at the university as a lecturer and a researcher, and now built my own business, Happy Families. Okay, so what else can I tell you? Professionally, I've done a lot of publishing of academic research and papers in peer-reviewed books and journals. I write a weekly advice column for the Daily Telegraph. It's probably one of Australia's highest circulation newspapers on a Saturday. And I'm also the parenting expert for kidspot.com.au, one of Australia's biggest parenting portals, as well as being the parenting expert for Channel 9's Mornings and participating in parenting commentary on the Today Show, The Project, and a handful of other radio stations and TV programs around the country. I've reviewed content for the Australian Commonwealth Government's Raising Children Network. You've probably seen their website there. And I also act as a cyber safety advisor for the McAfee and Life Education Be Cyberwise program and the Alana and Madeline Foundation's eSmart Homes licensing system. And I'm an honorary fellow at the University of Wollongong and a senior associate with the Positive Psychology Institute. That's enough about me. I probably should tell you that away from work, I absolutely cherish my wife, Kylie. She has been my support as I've moved around the country as a radio announcer. And then as I've gone back to school and done all of this study and put my family through 8.5 years of poverty while I was a student, Kylie has been the most phenomenal support that any wife could be. And I think that I'll probably get Kylie in for one of these podcast episodes so that you can meet her and understand what she's like as a mum and a wife, because I think that she's a fantastic example and someone that you should get to know a little bit more. So as I said, we have 6 daughters. They give me endless opportunities to practice what I preach, and I cannot spend enough time with them and cuddle them enough. I'm a cycling fanatic. I love riding my push bike whenever I get a spare minute. And a Sunday morning churchgoer, I'm an avid reader. I'm always reading about 5 books at once. And basically, I'm a type A guy who's trying really hard to do more and relax just that bit more as well at the same time. It's not working very well at all. So that's my story. And now I think let's talk about this podcast. What's it all about? If you've followed along at happyfamilies.com.au or at my Happy Families Facebook page, you'll pretty much see more of the same sort of content here. But I'm going to be fleshing ideas out a lot more because it's so much easier to talk than to type. And I can share with you and hopefully really drill down into the ideas that I can't always explore fully in a 600-word blog. So that means that I'm going to be talking about parenting and children and child development and discipline and how to make your family happy. And from time to time, I'll comment on current issues as well. So I plan on answering your questions. In fact, this is something that I'm really looking forward to in this podcast. I want this podcast to be built around your questions, and I'll tell you more about how that's going to work a little bit later. So let's get stuck into today's podcast, shall we? I'm really excited to share some ideas about how we can proactively set our family up to be happy. Because it starts with the decisions that we make ahead of time as parents and actually planning to make a happy family. If you sit back and relax and wait for your family to get happy, it's probably not going to happen. You can't just drift into a happy family. You have to plan for it and make it happen. And while those best laid plans can come undone, when we're proactive, we can do a lot more with our families than we probably would be able to if we were simply reacting to whatever comes our way. So I'm going to share my 7 tips for proactively making families happy right after this.
We all love our children, but sometimes they can make life challenging, and we're all searching for the right answers. In the end, all we want is happy children and happy families. Dr. Justin Coulson is one of Australia's most respected parenting voices. His seminars equipped and empowered thousands of parents to make their families happier. But sometimes getting to a parenting seminar can be tough. Now you can watch one of Dr. Justin's seminars from the comfort of your own home and at a time that works for you.
In this seminar video, available online now, you're invited to sit in on one of Dr. Justin's parenting seminars as he takes you from confusion to clarity. Combining parenting research with heartfelt stories, you'll discover the 3 essential keys to raising a resilient child and creating a happy family. What your child needs from you. From Dr. Justin Coulson at happyfamilies.com.au. Download this 90-minute seminar now or purchase the DVD at happyfamilies.com.au.
Let's face it, as a society, we're pretty highly strung. Whenever you say to somebody, hey, how you going? The most common answer is, oh, I'm busy. I'm so flat out. I'm under the pump. I'm stressed. And while a select few have really got it together and they're relaxed and they're living those lives that everything seems perfectly balanced, the reality is that for most of us, life is full on. Family life in particular is frantic. And we often don't feel like everything's under control all that much. I actually think that, generally speaking, we're pretty reactive. We fly by the seat of our pants and we just respond to incidents, put out fires, scratch every itch, and we try to be everywhere for everyone at once. The problem, of course, as you know, with being reactive and responding to whatever comes our way is that we struggle to fit in the really important stuff on a consistent basis because we're so busy responding to every emergency. To paraphrase a song, we end up giving the least to those who matter most and sharing our best with those that really aren't that close, which is hardly a recipe for a happy family. The thing is, strong families don't happen by accident. They're actually the product of consistent, proactive efforts on the part of mum and dad, on the part of parents who make the family a priority. And I know that this is so hard because life really does get in the way of having the life that we want. But when we plan for a happy family, when we put certain big rocks in place and then put all the little rocks around that, we can fit the big things in. It's just something that requires proactivity. And I was having a chat with a friend of mine about this idea. He's a guy with 6 kids. All but the youngest have grown up. His youngest is in his mid-teens now, but the rest of them have grown up and left the nest. And we came up with 7 habits for proactive parenting to make our families stronger and happier. So, Carl, thanks for your ideas. And here they are with a little bit of a Happy Families Justin Coulson twist. Habit number 1, a family focus is imperative. Do you know what your family's really about? It sounds very corporate, this idea of maybe having a family mission statement or family guiding principles or something like that. But if we don't have clear objectives or goals for our family, what are we really working towards? We need to know where we're going. We don't just get in the car and start driving. Well, kids, where should we go today? We actually know where we're going before we get in the car. And I think we need to know the same thing with our family. I love that scene in Alice in Wonderland. Alice is conversing with the Cheshire Cat, and she says to the cat, "Would you please tell me which way I ought to go from here?" And the cat responds, "Well, that depends a good deal on where you want to go." And Alice says, "I don't much care where." And the cat responds, "Well, then it doesn't matter which way you go." So our family's tried a variety of things over the years, and we've had mixed success. I've got to be honest, I really don't like the idea of sitting down and writing a family mission statement. It becomes this thing on paper that sits on the fridge that everybody stops looking at after a week, and we forget what it's all about anyway. But one thing that has really stuck with us is guiding principles. In our family, we've come up with 4 principles that we try to use as guiding principles in all of our interactions. Those guiding principles are kindness, respect, gratitude, and service. I know it sounds a bit like a lot of schools have got their guiding principles, but it's not lip service. The more you integrate it, the better the results. And so we talk a lot about kindness and respect and gratitude and service. We pull stories out of the media, maybe little things that pop up on Facebook. We talk about them all the time. When incidents happen at home, we talk about whether it was kind or not and what we could do to have more kindness. Now, it doesn't make for perfect kids, but what we have found is that it makes a really big difference. So whether or not you want to put together a mission statement, a manifesto, or guiding principles, regardless of what you want to call it, proactive parents know what their family is about and they work towards it and they put things on paper to actually make this stuff happen. Habit number 2 is having a parents' retreat. Proactive parents take regular retreats with one another without the kids if they can for 2 reasons. First of all, it rejuvenates your relationship and it reestablishes those strong connections within the couple relationship. Now, I know that not everybody can do this, but if you are in a couple relationship, this is so important. It allows for intimacy without the kids as well. The threat that a child might walk in and disturb you at a sensitive moment, but it also provides a chance to refocus on priorities and plan for family needs. I recently spoke with a dad who described how he and his wife would disappear for 2 or 3 days once or twice a year as their children grew up. And they spent time together as a couple. One of those days, they worked through a very serious agenda that was written out ahead of time, planning around their family and other aspects of their lives. They'd actually talk about each child and what they could do to guide and help that child during the coming months. And they considered that child's needs, that child's progress, what was going well, where they could make changes to help that child do better. And they did that for each of their children. Now, Kylie and I have a commitment to getting away for a night, just one night every 3 months. And I know that not everyone can do this, but be creative and come up with ideas. Perhaps you can get parents involved for a night. Maybe you can tag team with another couple and you can say, well, we'll look after your kids on this weekend if you can look after our kids on that weekend. Or perhaps you can do it on the cheap. Just maybe house swap with your babysitter or house swap with your parents. Just go to a new environment if money is lacking and you can't afford hotels and things. But get away on a parents' retreat once every 3 months, just overnight or for a couple of nights if you can. Habit number 3, take regular family holidays. Now, they don't need to be expensive. They just need to be about time together. A lot of people see school holidays as this logistical challenge. What am I going to do with the children? But most of us, especially if we've got full-time work, get annual leave. If you get 4 weeks of holiday a year, take a week off each holiday. It can be done. It doesn't have to be costly. Just get away with the family for a week. In our family, we try to have one camping break each year. We try to have 2 holidays at home that are just having fun. I'll take a week off work. We'll go to the beach with the kids. We'll go for bike rides, and we simply let go of our agenda for a week. And then we try to have 1 holiday a year where we actually go somewhere. We don't always get it just right, but that's what our goal is. 4 holidays, 1 camping, 2 at home, and 1 actually going away for a big holiday if we can. Habit number 4, have family dinners. Proactively plan for family dinners. Regular family dinners, research tells us, lead to family satisfaction, lead to stability, lead to positive outcomes for our children. Families do best when there's time set aside every day, or at least several times a week, when everyone's together and everyone's connecting. There's stacks of research. It may not actually be the food and sitting down and having a family dinner that makes this work. It's probably more about what families are doing when they're at dinner. But sitting down and having a family dinner several times a week, every night if you can, is a proactive thing that you can do to make your family happier. Habit number 5, put your devices away. Proactive parents have boundaries around when and where the internet and electronic devices are going to be used, and they stick with them. And those boundaries are not just for the kids, mum and dad, they're for us as well. Because proactive parents know that time with family means time spent talking and being attentive and looking at someone and making eye contact and being present with them. So a couple of ideas, maybe you can have a phone stack where everyone just puts their phones on top of each other, plugs them into the charger and leaves them alone during family meals or during family time. There was a recent study, in fact, that showed that the quality of our interactions is rated as lower when a phone is present, even if it's not being used. If we've just got it on the table or if we've got it in our lap or in our hand, the quality of our interactions is reduced. So put the devices away and make your family happier. Habit number 6, weekend time. Taking time to recharge our own batteries and spend quality time outdoors, having nature time with the kids, builds our family relationships, but we've got to be proactive about it because it's so easy to just drift into the weekend, sleep in, get up, tidy the house a bit, wash the car, mow the lawn, hang out some washing, maybe do a bit of shopping. We've got to be proactive about it. And if we're proactive about it, we might just take a trip to a nearby park. We might go down to the beach or go for a hike in the nearby hills or mountains or whatever we've got nearby. Maybe we'll go for a bike ride, but be proactive for at least part of the weekend. We don't have to absolutely get lost for the entire weekend, but be proactive for at least part of the weekend. And habit number 7, this is a really interesting one that this friend Carl suggested to me, and it was one that I've heard before, and I've started doing it with my family, and it's made a really big difference. Interviews with your kids. Some of the most proactive parents that I've spoken with have a time once a month to have a one-on-one interview with their children. And they talk about challenges, they teach principles, they get into the detail of their kids' lives, and they stay close to their kids. As I mentioned, we've started doing it with our children, and our children absolutely love it. It's really concentrated time. It's one-on-one time. We get into the detail of their lives, and we find out amazing things. Plus, we get to ask how we're doing and how our children would run the family differently, which is always eye-opening. It always teaches us some pretty remarkable things. Okay, so these ideas require effort. That's what being proactive is. We make a choice to be active participants in our lives and in our children's lives rather than being passive and reactive. Oh, let me share with you a bonus idea as well. Our church recommends that we set aside one night each week as a designated family night. No screens, just family time together. So in our family, we talk about the principles that we think matter. We've got a Christian faith, so we often talk about things that are in the scriptures, or we share stories that are faith-promoting. But we also play games and we have some kind of treat, and we just have this dedicated family time. It's a terrific way for us to spend time together, and that's a bonus idea that I think can help to have a proactive family. Reactive parenting only requires that we respond to emergencies or we respond to responsibilities as they come up. But reactive parenting doesn't build relationships or memories, certainly not the kind that we want to build. Strong families require us to be disciplined, to be consistent, and to have a commitment to putting our family first, particularly when life is intense and challenging or even out of control. And let's face it, for some of us, it really can be. I think that one of the greatest predictors of our children's success and well-being is the quality of their relationship with their parents. So these strategies are all based around time together, proactive ideas that can help make families stronger and happier. So here's a question that I want to leave you with as we wrap up this segment. What one proactive habit or idea do you think is important to make your family happy. How do you make it happen? How do you be proactive in your family? Can you leave your answer at happyfamilies.com.au/1, as in the number 1, happyfamilies.com.au/1. Just scroll down to the bottom of the notes there, and there's a place to leave your comments and any questions that you've got as well. I would love to hear from you and get some conversation going around this idea of being proactive in our family. And up next, I'll talk to you about how perhaps I can help you.
Your conference is about to start. I wonder what's going to happen next. Perhaps you're worried about the guest speakers. What will they say? Will it be appropriate, relevant, up to date? Is it going to be boring? You want people to come to you at the end of the day and say, wow, thanks for organising today. I took so much away from the conference. Dr. Justin Coulson can help.
He provides keynote speeches from 30 minutes to an hour and a half, workshops from 90 minutes to half days, and even day-long seminars. If you'd like to learn more about getting a speaker who will help your audience learn, laugh, and leave with practical tools that will empower them to be better parents, visit happyfamilies.com.au for more information about booking Dr. Justin Coulson as a speaker at your next conference.
So each week during this podcast, I'm going to be doing what I can to answer your parenting questions. If you're dealing with issues with the kids, or if you're dealing with issues in your parenting, go to happyfamilies.com.au/questions. That's happyfamilies.com.au/questions, and leave me a voicemail, or you can leave me a written response as well. Let me know briefly what your question is. I'll answer 1 or 2, depending on how many we've got time for, maybe even 3 each week in the podcast. Unfortunately, because I've spent so much time sharing so many tips today and also getting to know you a little bit, or helping you to get to know me a little bit, I won't be answering any today, but I'd love your questions. I've already got a bit of a stockpile ready to go from people who have been asking questions, but just go to happyfamilies.com.au/questions, and I would love to respond to as many of your questions as I can. You can leave a voicemail message there, or you can email me with your questions. That's happyfamilies.com.au/questions. The last thing that I'm going to share with you today is my tip of the week, and I'll share that with you right after this.
Have you been waiting to attend one of Dr. Justin Coulson's parenting workshops, but so far your schedules simply haven't aligned? Then let him come to you. You can have one of Australia's most respected parenting experts in your lounge room. Learn how to build a strong connection with your children, how to really understand them, and how to discipline them in ways that teach and that everyone can feel good about. Plus, you can have all your parenting questions answered without even leaving your lounge room. Organise some friends and enjoy an intimate, thought-provoking, fun evening in with a parenting expert in your lounge room. Visit happyfamilies.com.au/lounge room or email Kylie at happyfamilies.com.au for more information.
So each week, my plan is to bring you a tip of the week, something that will be helpful for you and your family, something really simple that you can do to make things work better or to make better decisions or whatever it might be. This week, I want to tell you about a couple of really great online resources to help you to work out whether or not a movie or a book or a TV show that your kids want to watch or read is okay. 2 websites, commonsensemedia.com and kidsinmind.com. They're great resources. They give you a really good overview of the content that's in these things that our kids want to be involved with and help us to understand whether or not we should be saying okay, or whether we should suggest that they maybe wait another year or 2 before they get stuck into it. I also heard about another one this week that I haven't checked out called itsok.com. So that's kidsinmind.com, commonsensemedia.com, and itsok.com. Some ideas for whether or not, giving you some input as to whether or not certain movies, TV shows, or books are going to be okay for your children at the age that they are right now. Well, that's about it for today. If you have any questions, once again, go to happyfamilies.com.au/questions, and I'll do my very best to answer those questions in an upcoming podcast. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please go to happyfamilies.com.au/podcast/1. You can get the outline and the resource links for the show notes there. That's happyfamilies.com.au/podcast/1, as in the number 1. And if you think that the podcast has been useful, if you've enjoyed it, what I'd be most grateful for is this. If you could visit that link, happyfamilies.com.au/podcast/1, as in the number 1. And once you're there, you'll be able to link and share everything about this podcast with your friends and followers on Facebook and Twitter. And I'd be even more grateful if you'd not only share it that way, but if you'd rate the podcast on iTunes, because it's your ratings that actually determine how likely it is that people are going to discover the podcast. The ratings that you make will increase how visible the podcast is. Other people will be able to find out about it, and hopefully they'll also get value from it as you hopefully have, and make their families happier. So if this podcast is valuable to you, and hopefully it's going to be valuable to you and everyone else, please visit iTunes, rate the podcast, share it. That would be awesome. And of course, while you're on iTunes, you can subscribe to the podcast as well. Well, that's it for this week. I'll have another podcast ready to go next week. Until then, remember that you don't have to be the best parent in the world. You just have to be the best parent in your children's world. So go and make your family happy.